Well, I think we're ready to kick off. So thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Frank Gambino with the Transflo marketing team, and today we are proud to present From Cab to Cash, accelerating or automating the carrier journey. Before we begin, I do want to thank everyone for joining and as well go through a bit of housekeeping. So before we start, questions are of course welcome and encouraged. Please submit all of your questions as you think of them using the Q&A button at the bottom. We will try to hold questions until the end. And then, of course, feel free to interact using the chat with our presenters. A session of today's presentation will be recorded and distributed once we conclude. And then, of course, please note that any reference to rates, costs, marketing strategies do not reflect a specific offer by any of the parties presenting today. Without further ado, I'd love to introduce today's speakers. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Justin King.
Oh, thanks, Frank. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this webinar. My name is Justin King, and I'm the Chief Product Officer here at Transflo. And my team is really responsible for managing our product innovation roadmap and executing our products and features into the market to help solve some of these challenges. Mario?
Mario Duckett, Senior Vice President of our Automation Solutions. Very excited to be here to show you all the things that we can get done between cab and cash.
Good afternoon. I'm Danny Goldstein. I'm the VP of Solution Engineering here at Transflo, and looking forward to talking to everyone today, and thank you for joining us. Emily?
And I'm Emily Stratton. I'm our VP of Customer Solutions, and I'm here as the customer advocate and as a user from a previous company. So look forward to talking through cab to cash with you.
Yeah, great. So to get started, let's talk a little bit about the challenge that exists in freight. And so, look, it's no secret to any of you on the phone here that there's a lot of complexity around moving freight. The complexity of what we all do is even further amplified by just the complexity of the industry as a whole. You know, carriers, brokers, shippers, just a fragmented industry, factoring companies as well as part of that, and all of these different fragments and constituents of the freight process all have unique requirements on what they need to pay and to be paid, and that complexity then is further amplified by the technology landscape. And you all know that there's hundreds of different TMS platforms. There's lots of different freight technology companies out there. And there's fundamentally a lack of standardization and a lack of automation that exists. So this results in a big challenge around manual processes that really slow carriers down and slow down the pace of payments, then the cash flow that essentially makes the industry move. It also creates a frustration point for drivers, complex load workflow requirements. Driver just wants to drive, and increasingly, in order to support these processes, there's a lot of complexity that has to happen in the cab. And when documents are delayed getting in, there's inefficient auditing of documents, those lead to delayed invoicing and payments as well. And all of those things, like coupled with the fact that, as you all know, carriers really front a lot of the per mile operating cost in order to move freight, right? The fuel, the insurance, the equipment costs, the driver salaries, all of that has to be paid, a lot of times 30, 45, 60 days before the carrier gets paid to move that freight. And so this creates the cash flow strain, which is the challenge which, Transflo is focused on solving for. So at Transflo, we call this process the cab to cash process, and it's that process that you all go through in order to be paid. And like I said a minute ago, I mean, at Transflo, I would say we're absolutely obsessed at making this process better, and we've built a platform that connects the cab to the final cash payment that automates that. But before we go into too many details on that, let me first level set and define these 6 distinct steps in the cab to cash process that we focus on. First, it starts in the cab, of course, like everything, it starts with the driver who's actually picking up and delivering that load. The driver has a workflow that they follow, the steps along the way. And then at the end of a load, the driver has to capture and submit all the documents, like the proof of delivery, for example, and everything associated with that delivery, in order to finish it. The next step that we focus on, which really is overarching through this, is compliance. It's ensuring the correct hours of service, it's ensuring the right safety inspections, and so on, so that the carrier can manage that cash to cab journey in a way that ensures compliance with the law. The next step is visibility and tracking. Carriers have to monitor the load, ensuring it's on track, keeping shippers informed of status, and making sure that everything is on time and in a good place. And then at the end of a load, there's the documentation. Those documents must be received. They have to be audited, packaged in order to meet shipper or broker requirements for invoicing. And finally, after invoicing, the carrier gets paid and driver settlements are made, and all of that whole cash process, kicks off. And look, as we talked about when we talked about challenges, Ren, I don't need to tell any of you all because you live this every day, but this process is typically very manual, and it's time consuming, it's prone to errors, and it creates a lot of headaches in the business. But the good news here is that Transflo's connected platform really automates all of this. And to talk a little bit more about that, let's go a little deeper into each of these 6 different steps. I'm starting with the in-cab step here, and I'll hand it over to Danny to take us a little deeper in that. Danny?
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it. And thanks again, everybody, for joining us today. We say step 1 because we always start with the driver at Transflo. So I spend most of my year in trucks with drivers, talking to those who use our system. And it's incredibly important that we take the one piece of advice we've gotten from everybody we've talked to. Simplify this for the driver in the field. Make it easier for him to do his job today. The rest of the industry has made it harder for drivers every time they get behind the wheel of that truck. There are more tasks for them to complete. There's more steps that they need to take. There's more documentation they need to provide. It isn't just pick up a load and drop off a load anymore. There is a ton of technology that our drivers need to interact with to make sure that they get the job done correctly, in compliance, and so that we can get paid. And those are really key parts to what we do here at Transflo to try to simplify this for the driver. The very first step in our workflow process is our mobile application, Transflo Mobile. Now, you're going to hear us say the word workflow a lot today. We have a workflow from your dispatch to your driver. We have a workflow from the driver back to your document management system. How do we automate all of these flows? Transflo has each piece of these available for you guys, but also they work better when they work together. So today we're going to try to paint an entire picture of how our systems work together to make it simpler for your driver and simpler for your administration team. Now, every day a driver has up to 50 separate tasks that he needs to complete, and each one of those tasks can have multiple steps. What do they do when they pick up their load? What do they do when they arrive at a shipper, arrive at a consignee, or depart a consignee? How many times do they need to touch that tablet that that driver here in the picture has in his hands? The last thing we want is for our drivers to be unsafe. We don't want them worried about what the next step is. We want to automate as much of this process as we can. We'll get into more detail in just a moment. But the key is, what are the things drivers do manually today that we can upload, change, and improve to automate that system? Do they need to arrive manually every time they get to a location? Do they need to manually say that they've departed? Do they need to tell you if they've been loaded, if they're unloaded? Of course not. We can use our system to make that simpler and easier for your driver. But most importantly, drivers today have more applications they need to touch than ever before. And it's not a trend we see reversing anytime soon. So another way that we make this simpler for our drivers in the field is to put everything they need in one place. Can we deep link the applications that they use? Can we use our API to transfer information? Can we make sure that drivers stay compliant without having to enter in a trailer number 7 different times in their workflow? These are all things that Transflo Mobile does. It's an open and agnostic system that makes sure that whomever our driver needs to talk to in the day, he can do it simply and automated inside of our system. And Frank, if you go to the next slide, please, learn. Okay, we don't talk about drivers ever without talking about compliance, ELD, and safety first. It's the most important thing we can do for our drivers is make sure that they stay compliant and safe on the road. It's important to them driving the truck. It's important to the other people driving on the road with them. And it's important to our teams for more than one reason. We want safe drivers. We want compliant drivers. We want drivers with the lowest amount of risk. Because if we want to continue to drive down cost inside the cab, a safe driver is the best and most important place to start. So Transflo Telematics, backed by Geotab, does this a few different ways. One, in the Geotab portal, we have the #1 ELD provider in the country and the largest telematics provider in the world with over 5 million connections today. And we use their safety platform because it is the best to use with the most data points. You heard us talk earlier about how do we connect everything a driver needs to do. And in today's world, it's not about writing information down on a piece of paper. It's about all of the systems your drivers that use today are connected. And then we want to make sure they're connected in a way that the driver doesn't have to interact with them. Do they need information? Do they need alerts? All of that can be done automatically when you combine Transflo Mobile and Geotab. Our Assured Telematics team, who runs our telematics at Transflo, has built custom tools and integrations for us to be able to accomplish just that. So what are some of those tools? Automatic updates to drivers about completing their DVIR. Automatic updates to drivers about making sure that they stay compliant by verifying their logs. We can use our user workflow to make a driver go in and verify those logs every single day as needed. And these are the tools that we use on a daily basis to make sure that our drivers are safe and compliant. We have over 200 custom applications and thousands of reports that do this every single day. Now, how do we do that for a driver without bothering them? Because the last thing a driver wants is to have a system that is constantly reminding him to do things while he's on the road. Because after safe drivers, we also want long-term drivers. So it's the balance at Transflo where compliance is required to make sure that the things that we do for our drivers are automated in a way where they have to touch the application less. So Justin's team has designed a system where when a driver logs in and he has a trailer dispatch from his TMS, that automatically updates Transflo, that automatically updates Geotab, so the driver never has to go into his hours of service and say, this is the trailer that I'm pulling today, because we automate that system for the driver. Same thing with shipment information, BOL information. All of this is done so that our driver has to touch our application less, can be driving more. Because the third piece of the puzzle after safety, after is operational efficiency. Drivers typically have 11 hours a day to drive. They have 14 hours a day to work. And if we can take and have your driver working an hour less on operational and administrative tasks, then he can spend more time driving in the road. That's more loads that you can deliver with the same number of drivers. And we've created more efficiency for your team so that every time they get behind the wheel, they're focused on money-making activities. How does that help us? We're retaining our drivers by giving them less tasks every day. We're retaining and making our drivers happy by giving them more time to drive. Every driver will tell you they want to spend time working and on the road because we pay drivers by their efficiency. So we want to make sure that we do the same thing inside of Transflo Mobile. Custom solutions inside of our compliance, automated integrations inside of our mobile will drive us to the next slide. Thank you, Frank. And here's where we bring it all together, our load workflow and our document capture. Transflo has been doing document management for over 30 years, and our mobile application is over 10 years old. And it's really important that we combine these two things because Mario and Emily can't do their job if I don't have our drivers getting them the right documentation at the right time. So how do we do this? On the right, you'll see our load workflow, and everything a driver does can be associated here. You see the scan button in the upper right-hand corner. They can push that button, and when they do, and when they scan that document, the first thing we're going to do is associate any metadata that comes over with the load with that document scan. So we've created that document scan. We passed the load number over. Any other data that needs to come over. Do we need the truck number? Do we need the driver number? Anything that's not on that document that's in your TMS can be automated as part of that process. So let's think about that for just a minute now. Today, You have a driver. And at certain stops, he's got to provide a BOL. And the next stop, he needs a lumper receipt. And the next stop, he may need his wash receipt. And then he needs a POD at the end of the day. And drivers are constantly being told, we need all of your paperwork so that we can get you paid. And pay will be delivered to a driver sometimes before the carrier gets paid. And it all becomes kind of a mess of who gets paid first, how do we make this efficient, and how do we make sure that money is collected in a way that makes everybody happy at the end of the day. And Transflo can make that much easier for you because, one, every time a driver stops at a place on his load, we can tell him at this stop you need a BOL, at this stop you need a POD, and at this stop you need a lumper receipt. Do we need the driver to tell us, hey, I had to grab a lumper at this particular location to help with the unload? And then automatically that will trigger them and say, okay, let's upload that lumper receipt. So now we've got all the information that we need. Now, it used to be a driver would need to go, wait, what information do I need to pull off? Are they going to be able to read this? Is this going to happen? Where does it go to the right place? And Mario and Emily in a minute are going to show you how the driver doesn't have to worry about that anymore. All we need to tell him are what documents he needs to send over. He can put them in any order in our scanning engine. He can put them together all in one batch. He can send them over separately because we're automatically attaching these every single time to that correct load number. And again, any document that we can capture on the mobile side, if I have it associated with that load number, just like you see here on the screen, then Workflow AI will take care of the rest. We've gone from a driver having to worry about looking at documents, pulling the right information out, typing it in a mobile app, sending a text message, making phone calls, all the things that make drivers less efficient and less safe and less compliant go away the minute they scan with our total workflow. From dispatch to driver, from driver back to admin, our workflow can take care of all of that for your driver, and we'll show you that in just a minute. But none of that matters if I can't go to the left image here and scan for you a quality image. Capture that image in a way that can be read. We have all seen paperwork from a driver where their hand is on top of the paperwork, or they take a picture of their coffee instead of the document, or they're trying to take a picture and there's no light. Transflo Mobile removes those variables from the equation. We make it so we tell the driver, this document is in screen correctly. You're not too far, you're not too close. We can see your document. It's going to immediately count down for you automatically. The driver doesn't even have to push a button to capture the document. We do it for you. Once we capture that very clear image, we convert it to a PDF so you don't have these large files sitting back on your document server. Once we have grabbed those documents, we've sent clear images, we've automatically associated with the document, with the load that is correct, then we send that over. So your driver now has pushed the button on the right there that looks like a scanned image. He holds his phone over the document. It tells him to move closer or farther. He doesn't push a button. He hits send, and then Mario will take it from there. And in just a second, I'm going to turn it over to Mario because now as managing your drivers, they've gotten their load information correctly. We've automated every stop and all the information that you need. The driver has been required to do the few tasks. We've gone from 50 to 3 or 4 tasks inside the load. We've scanned a quality image, and it goes over to Mario to show you what he does with it. Thank you very much for today. And Mario, take it away, sir. You're on mute, Mario.
Good timing to talk about a question that popped up in the chat. So one of the questions that came up was, what part of the cab to cash journey is we're noticing the biggest delays? And it's a 2-part answer, right? It's actually, the first part is document acquisition, right? How do we get the documents faster? That seems to be a delay. If they're waiting to get back to a terminal, if they're waiting to get back to any of the other means you have to get the documents, with the Transflo Mobile, we're getting it as soon as they deliver it at each part of that load execution. The second piece is processing the documents and the audit so that you can bill correctly. So those two things combined create that lag in between the load being delivered and being able to bill the customer. And we're going to step through now how Workflow AI actually speeds up that process. You saw the mobile app. That mobile app will send those clear images directly to Workflow AI, and Emily will step through what the Workflow AI engines actually do.
Perfect. On the next slide, so we have every hour between delivery and billing delays cash flow. So the automation eliminates that lag. With documents already validated by AI, billing data is immediately ready for your invoicing. So our Care AI integrates with your TMS or your accounting system to automatically generate that invoice once all those required documents are in. The exception workflow, we work with you and your team to just go through your business requirements on what those exceptions are and what they need to be flagged. Ultimately, what are the drivers required to send in? What do we need to validate to make sure what they sent in is correct and for that load? And that eliminates and makes sure nothing slips through. If something's missing, it's flagged instantly and is ready for your team to review. If there's no exceptions, no issues, the driver sent everything in accurately and based on the requirements, that speeds up that billing and to your customer. So driver settlements can happen faster because once that load is verified, payment can then be processed same day or based on your terms. Now, automation ensures that your invoices are clean, they're consistent, they're accurate. You're reducing those disputes and those rebills. The fewer touches, faster turnaround, that's happier drivers and happier customers. So when your invoices run itself, your drivers and your customers both win. On the next slide, the goal of cash to cab is getting money in the door. So quickly, accurately, and predictability. So faster documentation, billing lead directly to reducing the DSO, our day sales outstanding. The sooner the invoices go out, the sooner the customers can pay. You can improve that working capital and cash predictability. So AI ensures clean invoices that don't get kicked back by your customers, speeding up those approvals and payment cycles. So faster settlements to your drivers, create loyal drivers. They're motivated. And ultimately, the full cash to cab process eliminates that friction between the delivery, billing, and the payment. So from cash to cab, automation closes that loop, fewer touches, faster payments, stronger cash flow for you and your company.
And Emily, if I can add one thing, it's when I realize, think about the question that was asked, what is the biggest lag that we see that invoices can't go out the door? Missing required documents. Right? That is number one. Yes, we may have issues with the lumper fees not being matched, but missing documents prevents you from billing when customers require documents like a signed POD. So the system will actually notify the driver immediately when they send in documents that we still need something. If you remember what Danny said about each stop, hey, we need a POD now. They send in a document. We don't ask them to doc type it. We run it through the engine and go, yeah, that wasn't a POD. It wasn't signed. We can immediately notify the driver. That eliminates all the human steps you're doing in the back office to chase down those documents to get your invoice paid. So it all flows together, being able to identify exceptions, as Emily said, but we can even resolve exceptions without human interaction.
Yeah, and identifying, lumpers, if there's a lumper on the load, making sure that that's a requirement for the driver. Signed proof of deliveries, like Mara mentioned, we're identifying there's a signature on the document that they sent in. We're validating that is an actual proof of delivery and not just what the driver identified as a proof of delivery. So, again, we work through those requirements with you and your team to make sure that everything that they're looking at today and they're validating today, we are validating for you and only stopping the ones that your team need to validate. But with that, like Mara mentioned, we are helping with those exceptions. So not only, which my favorite part is not only identifying that there's an exception, but like Mara mentioned, we're helping you resolve those exceptions by notifying the driver that there's an issue without you having to draft up that email, send a notification to them. We're already doing that. So on a Saturday, when that driver sends in those documents, if there's an issue, they're being notified on Saturday. And hopefully on Saturday or Sunday, they're resolving those exceptions before you even come into work on Monday. So it's the power of automation, the power of AI, helping reduce the manual touch points and create that automation so you're not having to touch the items that are perfect. I'm going to pass it over to Justin next.
Yeah, great. So, just to wrap up here, as Danny, Emily, and Mario discussed, at Transflo, we've built a connected ecosystem that really helps you automate this entire cash or cab to cash process, this cycle. We talked a little bit about some of the tools and products that we have that all work together. From our Transflo Mobile Plus app, which is really the companion for the driver in the cab, ensuring good workflow compliance, ensuring immediate document capture, and real-time compliance overall, as well as load tracking and visibility. Taking it from all that capability and technology inside the cab that we have, then connected to our workflow AI back office software that captures, compiles, and audits the load documents, and uses AI to automate that for you, and ensuring fast invoicing and fast payments ultimately. And really just the overall headline here is that our platform is here to help you make this process faster and more efficient, and really going back to the challenge that we talked about at the beginning, helping you solve the cash flow challenge. The faster you can get this done, the more efficient you can get this process done, the faster you can get paid, and the faster your DSO and DPO is managed and all of that. So that's really what we have here to share with you. And I guess with that, Frank, I think we're opening it up to some questions at this point. Yeah.
That is correct. And I see some that are flowing in already. So the first question from Jerry, will this AI help in paying the driver more efficiently with proper cutoffs and multiple driver pay contracts?
Yeah, I think it would depend on, sorry, I had a hard time getting my mute unmuted. I think it'll just depend on the, how you have it set up. And that would be part of that requirements gathering that we work through. But working through the cutoffs and that multiple pay. So we do have a lot of customers that have multiple drivers, that the multi-leg, multi-driver setups. So however you have those set up and how we're able to identify those and work through those, we can absolutely get those in those business requirements.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Emily. I'm going to go ahead and assign this one to Danny. What safeguard criteria does your ELD monitor, such as harsh braking, speed, following too close, lane splitting, rolling stops, etc.?
Yeah, Raymond, thank you for the question. I see your second one in there too. So easy answers are easy. Yes, of course, we cover all of those and many more inside the Geotab platform for ELD. Not only can we have those available, you can customize every rule to give you multiple tiers when it comes to any safety standard that you want to set for your company. Speeding is the easy example. I need to see everyone 5 miles an hour over, but also need to understand egregious speeding that is more than 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. We also have multiple camera systems that are completely integrated inside of our platform, and some that are native to the Geotab platform that they produce. And we would love to talk to you more about that, and can even let anyone who likes to demo those in person. Thank you.
And I think one important word that I want to really highlight is platform, right? So the mobile platform gives you the ability to configure and build your workflow. The Workflow AI platform has the ability for you to build your workflow audit rules. You may have a general institutional audit, which says I need a POD for everyone. Emily mentioned you may have a conditional load audit, which says on this load, there actually was a lumper. I need a lumper receipt. And you can even build where we hear a lot, well, this customer needs X, Y, and Z every time. You can build an audit for that specific customer without holding up the other 80% that go through without being held up for an exception. So configuration's key. We built a platform to meet your needs. It will never be about a square peg fitting a round hole. It'll do exactly what you want. And the expertise we bring to the table is we have a ton of best practices we can recommend as well.
Yeah, and to add to that, we have a customer today that says, any new driver that we onboard, we want to put through a review process. We don't want to just automatically process their documents. We want to make sure that they're compliant with our expectations of what documentation they're including for reimbursement. So those are the ones that we can put to a review as well, and then remove them as soon as you're comfortable with what they're sending in, and auto process them. So the automation, I always say, can be as ease into it to your comfort level, and further automate to your comfort level and based on the rules and the expectations that you have for drivers. Or if you have a customer, which is another common scenario where you have a customer that you just brought on, you're going to roll out the red carpet for them because they are a high-profile enterprise customer. You could have those stop for review at first, make sure everything goes good for the first few weeks, first month of them doing business with you, and then turn them off at your leisure. You control that. That way they're then automated so you can speed up that billing for them.
All right, we see two questions that involve brokers out there. One from Marcia on, are we connected to only brokers on our platform or brokers connected to Transflo? And the other one is there a configuration that would benefit the broker's role? What you should know about Transflo is our entire focus in the ecosystem is to reduce the risk between all the constituents. So we have connectivity between brokers, carriers, and factors. They all come into play. But no, you don't have to only be connected to brokers to take advantage of Workflow AI for the carrier. And for Raymond, we have a specific point solution for brokers because they're the same documents as carriers, except you have an invoice and a rate con that comes in. So that same AI intelligence can work in an audit in the broker, work in an audit in the carrier, and of course, with factors being 50% of all the payments going out there, they're involved in our ecosystem too, with our ultimate goal is to reduce the friction between those constituents so that everyone can pay their driver, carriers faster, correctly, and more importantly, bill accurately, very fast.
Perfect. Thank you, Mario. And I do see one other question from Esmeralda. Does your platform also have availability for permit input on oversized escort loads?
Sure, of course. Digital documentation is central to what Transflo does here, and we'd love to talk to you about that. Most importantly, we want to make it easy for the drivers to access digital documentation, not just permits. It's truck registrations, tractor registrations, trailer registrations, all the thing a driver needs at his fingertips. Transflo can take from a paper-based system to a digital-based system. And thank you for your question, Esmeralda.
Yeah, and I'll add, Danny, I mean, our workflow, mobile workflow is configurable for different types of loads. So for, different, if a reefer load, for example, has a specific set of requirements or a certain document that needs to be uploaded, or in your case, in your question, an oversized permit or something like that has to be uploaded, we can make that configurable inside of the workflow that the drivers have based on the load or the shipper or the destination or whatever.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. I don't see any other questions coming in, so I think we're just about ready to wrap up today. So once again, I do want to thank everyone for joining and thank our panel for their expertise and their candor on today's call. If you're ready to accelerate your cab to cash journey, please reach out to us at contact@transflo.com. Otherwise, thank you for joining us today, and we appreciate it. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email them over. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Have a great day. Bye.